Dear students, in the last class we studied about risk management. I know that previously we studied what is risk, then we studied both risk management. So I have said that managing the risk is called, in simple terms, managing the risk is called risk management. And now today we are studying the important topic, that is risk management process. How to do the risk management? There is a process. There are various steps, and for our study we will be studying the 5 steps that includes. Therefore, we will go one by one. Risk management steps, 5 steps are there in managing the risk, one after the another. Uh, how you can control the or lessen the risk. So this is a chart where it shows all the steps that are involved in the risk management. So just sorry, I said 5 steps, only 4 steps here. First one is identify the loss exposures. So identify the loss exposures. What are the losses that are sure that you are going to incur, or there is a possibility? That identification is the first job. Second is measure and analyze the loss exposures. So measuring how much loss may occur, that is a second step. And the third step is select the appropriate combination of techniques for treating the loss exposures. So in that techniques you have two techniques, risk control and risk financing. In the risk control we have another three, that is avoidance, loss prevention and loss reduction. And in the risk financing also we have three: retention, non-insurance transfers and insurance. Now one more thing I want to clarify here. See, these are also called the tools of the risk management. So tools of risk management in your syllabus, if you see, there is a point, there is a topic called tools of risk management. So the tools of the risk management are these two only: risk control and risk financing. So the major tools of risk management are this only, and under this comes. Therefore in the exams sometimes full question may come, steps in the risk management process, or there are possibility of asking a question only risk management tools, or there is a possibility of asking you to explain only risk control, or there is a possibility of asking only a risk financing. Therefore it is a vast topic. This for this point, tools of the risk management is a vast topic. Therefore today I am not going to touch this. In another class I may take it two classes to explain this, because risk control once I will explain, then risk financing I will explain another time. So and last one is implement and monitor the risk management program. That's the last step, so that's not of that much importance. So these 1 2 3 steps are not that much important. The tools of risk management, the techniques of the risk management are very important, but at the same time if the process is asked, therefore you have to write it: identify loss exposures, measure and analyze the loss exposures, select the appropriate techniques for treating the loss exposures, and finally implement and monitor the risk management program. So these are the steps involved in the risk management process, and you are clear. And in my earlier classes also I have said very clearly to you, whenever the question asked to write a process, then you can't write the last step first and first step last. So you cannot make interchange of the steps. What is their process, accordingly you have to write this, after this and this. So that way only it has to go. Therefore see it clearly. So let's go in detail with the one after the another, and I have said today I will be explaining only two: identify loss exposures and measure and analyze the loss exposures. So step 1, identify loss exposures. So the first step in a risk management process is to identify all major and minor loss exposures. So identify loss exposure, it doesn't mean that okay only major losses are identified. It is both major and minor losses that are going to be has to be identified. And this step involves a painstaking review of all potential losses. Painstaking, a detailed study of all the losses. That means you are thinking where all there is a possibility of losses, and the list is here. Now I'll be explaining one after the another in a category wise. In different categories, what are the losses that are that may occur. So it is not a very simple task, it is a tedious task, it is a difficult task, because you don't know what is going to happen sometimes. But what happens, you have to, the moment you are in a business, so you have to sit and calculate where there is a possibility of the losses, and all, everywhere there is a possibility of losses to occur. So we'll move ahead with that one after that. First one is property loss exposures. So property loss exposures are of different many kinds. They are of building, plants, other structures. That means for a building always there is a possibility of loss. So you have to take care of the building. You don't know what kind of the loss may come in, so you have to think whether building is proper, what kind of the paintings has to be done, and are there any nearby hazards like trees and or all which may fall, or what kind of the building you are going, tile roof, terrace, or these things has to be seen. Furniture, equipment, supplies. So how much durability of furniture you have to calculate before purchasing. Plastic material or wooden material, iron material, what are there. So all the equipments that you have to see. Next we have computers, computer software and data. So in the computer also, all the technical aspects what are there, that is also property, printer and all are there. So that also possibility of losing. Then inventory. So what are the inventories all you have? So materials you have kept. Then accounts receivable, valuable papers and records. See, they are also property. You are keeping all the receipts, those book. Sometimes there may be a loss occurs to that also. Company vehicles, planes, boats, and mobile equipment. See, a company may have various kinds of the equipments that are using, and vehicle may be, and for that what are losses have happening. So you have to detail list out all the property losses. Second is liability loss exposures. So defective products, environmental pollution, land, water, air, noise, because of your this one, what is going to have a disturbed, that you have to think of. Then sexual harassment of employees, employment discrimination, wrongful termination, and failure to promote, all those things. See, sometimes what happens is there may be no possibility of promoting somebody, because your nature of business is such that all the employees you employed at once, and only one person is there, and he will be a manager till the end, and others will not have a possibility or such problem. Sexual harassment may be women, men and women both are there. There are a possibility of that. You have to think and calculate all those losses. So liability losses are continued here. Uh, Premises and generally liability loss exposures. Then you have a liability arising from company vehicles. Okay. Then the misuse of the internet and email transmissions. Then you have a directors and officials officers liability suits. These are all liability resources. I need not explain because these are very simple matters. Then we have a business income loss exposures. So from the income also there is a possibility of the loss. So loss of income from a covered loss. Then continuing expenses after a loss, extra expenses, then contingent business income losses. For a temporary time there may be a business loss, a particular income you are supposed to get, at present you are not getting that income. Now take example, due to corona, so in every month you are getting this much of income. Now this month, these months you don't have, so business income is a loss. Then we have some more loss exposures under the human resource loss exposure. So there is a death or disability or key employees or main person itself died. Then there is a big loss, a retirement or unemployment exposure, job related injuries or disease experienced by workers. So tomorrow in your company one person fell down from a top floor and had a injury, then you have to compensate, you have to look after all those expenses. It is a difficult thing. So even sometimes you are running a hotel and your main cook is retired, or sometimes he might have died, then it is a difficult task. So human resource loss exposures that also have to be calculated. And then crime loss, what all, you are just making a list what are the possibility of the risks, and here it is a big list just to assist a person where you can calculate. Then crime loss exposures, hold ups, robberies and burglaries, so employee theft and dishonesty, fraud and embezzlement, then internet and computer crimes exposures, theft of intellectual property, then you have all these crime exposures, then you have a employee benefit loss exposures. So what is there is employee benefits you have to pay sometimes, and such are also you are not able to pay, then say failure to comply with government regulations, ESI, PF and all, you are not paid, then you are incurring the fine. So violation of the fiduciary responsibility, what are the duties you have to do towards the laborers, so if you are not following, then you have to pay the fine. Group life health, group life health and retirement plan exposures, so whatever pension and all planning you have to give, have you given, that is also a question. Then failure to pay promised benefits, some promised benefits what you have made to the workers when you are appointing them, that has to be made other than the government norms and rules and regulations. So these are the losses that may occur in your what you call day to day activities. So still more there are, so foreign loss exposures, acts of terrorism, plants, business property inventory, so foreign currency and exchange rate risk, kidnapping of key personnel, political risks. See all these risks, what happens when you are going a business with the international level and all. So all those possibilities are there. Then intangible property loss exposures. Intangible means that properties which you can't touch it. So damage to the company's public image. See somebody is speaking ill about your company. That is also damage. Tomorrow your other losses will incur just because spoiling your image. So such and such businesses having now previous one around 10 to not 10, okay, around 3 4 years before that Maggie, there is a there is a problem, those who are eating Maggie they have reported, and so some ingredients that are used not proper, they said, so automatically the name of the Maggie came down. So loss of goodwill and market reputation, then loss or damage to intellectual property. So sometimes because of this one, some small problem, it may be a what you call enlarged, and your name will be spoiled. Then failure to comply with the government laws and regulations. So there are a lot of government rules and regulations, and if a particular company doesn't follow them, automatically they have to go for the losses. So what are those and all, that has to be written down. The moment it is a company means institution means you have all kinds of the losses, and one has to be very careful. Therefore manager need to be very intelligent as well as very detective and observant of looking after all the loss exposures, because the moment he is aware of the loss exposures, he can bring down. Now take example for the this one, workers, you have to pay the ESI. The moment you are aware, okay, you are paying the ESI. If you are not paying the ESI, then you are the ESI company will make you the fine. So that's all. Now PF for a particular employee, every month you have to pay the PF. The moment you are not aware that within 15 days of that month you have to, next month the previous month's PF you have to pay. You are not paid, then you are fine. So are additional charges. So that is a loss. So simple losses, but if you are aware, you can reduce it. That's all. So identifying the loss exposures. What are the losses are there? So then sources of information to identify the loss exposures. How to identify the loss exposure? Okay, these are the list I gave. How to identify them? So there are various methods are used: risk analysis questionnaire and checklist. Questionnaires and checklists require the risk manager to answer numerous questions that identify major and minor loss exposures. So what you call he prepares a questionnaire and a checklist where all possibility of the losses, and that could be conducted with the all the employees there. A risk manager will do that job. Then physical inspection. A physical inspection of company plants and operations can identify major loss exposures. So risk manager will go around, looks into and identifies which is in a dangerous situation. Is there any danger to the building? Watched. Okay. Is there any danger with the employees? Watched. So everything is physically visited and viewed. Then flowcharts that show the flow of production and delivery can reveal production and other bottlenecks, as well as other areas where a loss can have severe financial consequences for the firm. So flowcharts is, it is a chart of flowing. So in the organizations also, sometimes it is, when it is huge, a charts is provided. So with the chart itself, the risk manager just observes where all there is a possibility of the losses. So he doesn't move around, but he will just take the chart of a company and sit down and calculate. That is another what you call source. Then financial statements, analysis of financial statements can identify the major assets that must be protected, loss of income exposures and key customers and suppliers. See, all kinds of the financial losses could be identified by viewing the financial statements. So every year you are preparing the financial statement, ups and downs could be identified and why that particular loss. So when you are going through the income and expenditure accounts, you will find out the variations that have happened. So and comparing your present situation with the previous accounts, then automatically you will get the possibility of the loss exposures. Then historical loss data can be invaluable in identifying major loss exposures. So it is not of highly valuable. So what you call, but in the previous one, what all things are lost. So historical history, keeping the loss histories, you have lost this much, okay, by that, oh, is there a possibility of loss this time also of a particular nature, that identifying is one of the source. So these are the sources from where you can identify whether there is a possibility of the loss. So I hope you understand how to identify the loss exposures and what are the loss exposure list I have given. So this is the first step you have to do it in the process of risk management. So we'll move to the now second step. So step 2, measure and analyze the loss exposures. So it is important to measure and quantify the loss exposures in order to manage them properly. This step requires an estimation of the frequency and severity of loss. Loss frequency refers to the probable number of losses that may occur during some given time period, and loss severity refers to the probable size of the losses that may occur. See, in measuring and analyzing the loss exposures, the main two things are there, that is loss frequency and loss severity. So, loss frequency means probable number of losses that may occur during some given time period. So, how many times that particular loss will occur? That calculation is very important. Now, building collapsing, how many times will occur? Once in a 50 years, okay, that way calculating. How many times? Once in a 50, that calculation, okay. If it is repeatedly happening daily, that way you have to calculate the possibility of the losses. Then you have a loss severity, refers to the probable size of the losses that may occur. So amount of loss, how much? Okay, now building collapses, how much loss may take place? So once in 50 years, one building it gets in what you call unable to be used, and in such condition, so to put up that building, how much cost you are undergoing? Okay, take example now, to put up a particular building 1 crore. So 1 crore you are going to lose. So that amount once in 50 years is a severity, frequency, and 1 crore is a severity. Once the risk manager estimates the frequency and severity of loss for each type of loss exposure, the various loss exposures can be ranked according to their relative importance. What it says is, once you have estimated and calculated, now you are arranging according to the importance. Some losses are very important, need to be calculated, such as to be treated and considered first, and those who are not of that important. Now take example, okay, newly you have built a building and you are calculating building damage, okay, that will be later on, so you are putting last, okay, it is not of a given high importance. Then loss through the this one electrical equipment, so that will be given a prime importance because anytime short circuit may take place, therefore it need to be given a high care and import. The relative frequency and severity of each loss exposure must be estimated so that the risk manager can select the most appropriate technique or combination of techniques for handling regularly and are fairly predictable. They can be budgeted out of a firm's income and treated as a normal operating expense. If the annual loss experience of a certain type of exposure fluctuates widely, however, an entirely different approach is required. Now, why we are calculating this loss frequency and loss severity? It is to bring down your risk and bring down your loss. Therefore, you are categorizing according to losses according to the importance. So, gradation you are making, and the first loss you are keeping in mind first, and how much budget you require to that you are keeping first itself. So now for a building, every year you keep a particular amount so that after 50 years you require a building, you see that loss is there. So for a computer 10 years you are calculated, for a 10 years you are every year you are keeping a, for a computer 1000 each, 2000 each, so 20,000 for a computer in 10 years you have stored there. So it is a loss in your every year, so that you are in your budget or itself you can keep some amount, so that way you can proceed, and that's why it is helpful to measure and analyze. So if you are very clear with the loss severity and loss frequency, you can deal the loss that will occur very easily. So some more thoughts on measure and analyze the loss exposures. Although the risk manager must consider both loss frequency and loss severity, severity is more important because a single catastrophic loss could destroy the firm. Therefore, the risk manager must also consider all losses that can result from a single event. Both the maximum possible loss and probable maximum loss must be estimated. The maximum possible loss is the worst loss that could happen to the firm during its lifetime. What is sometimes there are a big losses that could happen, and that losses has to be calculated. Okay, sometimes every day there is a loss and it is of a small nature and it is a small amount, then not a big issue. Therefore severity calculation is not a big issue, rather the sorry frequency calculation is not a big issue, but rather severity is, and which is going to have a high risks that has to be calculated. So the probable maximum loss is the worst loss that is likely to happen. For example, if a plant is totally destroyed by a flood, the risk manager estimates that a replacement cost, debris removal, demolition costs, and other costs will total 1 crore. Thus, the maximum possible loss is 1 crore. The risk manager also estimates that the flood causing more than 1 crore of damage to the plant is so unlikely that such a flood would not occur more than once in 100 years. Once in 100 years, such a flood will come. So the risk manager may choose to ignore events that occur so infrequently. Okay, this is an example here given, a beautiful example where it is says is the risk manager says okay, once in 100 years means it doesn't come usually, sometimes it may come. So if it comes 100 crores of a loss we are under sorry 1 crore of loss we are undergoing because our building will be collapsed. So but once in 100 years, but it cannot be said that frequency need to be considered. He says once in 100 years means you need not bother at all. But if it happens, that is severity. The severity is a 1 crore loss you are undergoing. So catastrophic losses are difficult to predict because they occur infrequently. However, their potential impact of the firm must be given a high priority. In contrast, certain losses such as physical damage, losses to vehicles occur with greater frequency, are usually relatively small and can be predicted with greater accuracy. So this is something about the measuring and analyzing the loss. So you remember here 2 points: loss frequency and loss severity. So I hope you understand. Here I will close today the two steps I have explained. So identifying the loss exposures, measuring and analyzing the loss exposures, that is a second step. And third step we are going with the tools. Tools or techniques that are used to bring down the loss exposures. So that will be the third step. And I hope that you are looking and going through the classes. And please please make down your own notes. I will not be supplying any notes. Thank you.